You wake up, the world's still quiet, the house still dim. Your feet touch the floor, maybe slower than they used to, but steady. You shuffle to the bathroom, maybe glance at the clock, and without realizing it, your heart is already asking you for something, not in words, not in pain, but in a language you've long learned to ignore. It's a whisper in your bloodstream, a flicker in your rhythm. Your heart is waiting for a trigger, not caffeine, not a multivitamin, but food, specifically breakfast. Not just any breakfast, but one that signals to your body, we made it through the night. Now let's begin again, strong. The strange truth is that most people over 60 don't skip breakfast out of neglect. They skip it out of habit. Maybe you're not hungry in the morning. Maybe food makes you queasy early on. Or maybe it just feels like one more thing to prepare when you're still trying to shake off sleep. But behind that innocent pattern lies a ripple effect. When you skip breakfast, you don't just delay food, you delay your heart's first burst of support. You postpone the nutrients that thin your blood just enough, balance your morning pressure, nudge your metabolism awake, and reduce your stroke risk before it builds. The first hour of your morning isn't just about waking up your mind, it's about protecting your most vulnerable organ. After a long fast overnight, your blood becomes thicker, your blood vessels more constricted, and your cortisol, the stress hormone, spikes naturally. For a younger person, that's manageable. But for you, with a heart that's weathered decades of service, that extra strain can quietly edge you closer to a stroke or a cardiac event. A morning meal doesn't just provide calories, it lowers those early morning cortisol levels, gently thins your blood, and replenishes the glucose your heart muscles need to beat steadily. This is why your heart waits for breakfast, not to indulge, not to spike your sugar, but to begin the day with the stability it depends on. Skipping that moment sends a message of scarcity. But when you eat just a few mindful bites, you send a different signal. You tell your body, we're safe, we're nourished, we're ready. And your heart, faithful as ever, listens, ready for the work ahead, ready to carry you through another day. It didn't used to be like this. Decades ago, you'd wake up to the smell of eggs or toast, maybe a bowl of something warm. Your stomach would growl before you even reach the kitchen. But now the mornings feel different. Food sounds heavy, the hunger's gone quiet. It's easy to assume that's just age, but beneath that silence is a deeper shift your body is navigating. As we grow older, the hormone responsible for appetite, ghrelin, begins to decline. It's not that your body doesn't need breakfast anymore, it's that the alarm system has gotten quieter. This isn't failure, this isn't laziness, it's a biological change, one that, if left unaddressed, puts your heart at risk without you even noticing. Without the natural pull toward food in the morning, you delay the fuel that your heart and brain depend on after a long night of fasting. And because your metabolism has likely slowed, your heart becomes even more reliant on those first nutrients to stabilize your blood sugar, regulate your rhythm, and reduce that morning pressure surge. Skipping breakfast doesn't feel like a problem, but day after day, it adds tension your heart doesn't need to carry. There's also something else happening. Your digestion isn't what it used to be. Slower gastric emptying and reduced enzyme production can make food feel like a burden instead of a comfort. You might feel bloated easily or nauseated or simply disinterested, and so your heart doesn't get what it needs, not because you're careless, but because the act of eating itself has become a quieter part of your routine. But even if your hunger doesn't wake you up, your body still needs nourishment to transition from rest to action. The solution isn't to force down a large breakfast or ignore your discomfort. It's to relearn what breakfast means for you now. Small, warm, digestible, something your body doesn't resist. A bit of fruit, a spoonful of oatmeal, a boiled egg. You don't need to recreate your childhood breakfast table, you just need to give your heart a signal. A gentle nudge that says, you're not running on empty today. Even that small step rewrites the morning story your heart has been waiting to hear. Every morning, whether you feel it or not, your body undergoes a quiet surge. As sunlight creeps in and your internal clock ticks forward, your hormones shift into gear. Cortisol rises to wake you. Blood pressure ticks upward. Your heart rate begins to climb, preparing you for movement, thought, and action. For younger bodies, it's a smooth transition. But for seniors, especially those managing high blood pressure or a history of cardiac issues, this natural spike can turn into a dangerous slope. It's called the morning surge, and for millions, it's the moment their heart is most at risk. Studies have shown that strokes, heart attacks, and arrhythmias disproportionately occur in the early morning hours, often between 6 and 10 a.m. And yet, this is precisely when many seniors are running on empty. No food, no hydration, just a system kicking into high gear with no fuel to buffer the pressure. The body is asking for support, and when it doesn't get it, it compensates with stress. The blood thickens slightly, arteries constrict, and the heart, ever faithful, pushes harder to keep things moving, often to its own detriment. This is why breakfast isn't just about energy or tradition, it's a medical intervention. Something as simple as a small morning meal can help flatten that dangerous spike. Carbohydrates replenish glycogen stores, which support stable energy. Proteins balance blood sugar. A bit of potassium or magnesium from fruit or nuts can gently ease arterial tension. These aren't just nutritional facts, they're protective mechanisms your heart needs to stay steady during the most volatile hours of your day. When you eat, even lightly, you soften the stress response. You tell your body it's not in crisis. You remind your heart it doesn't have to fight alone. That simple act, done consistently, is one of the most underappreciated ways to reduce cardiovascular risk after 60. It's not a supplement. It's not a prescription. It's a plate. And for your heart, it's peace. Your heart doesn't just beat, it balances. Every second of the day, it responds to shifts in your blood, your breath, your pressure, your sugar. And while most people think of sugar as a threat, the truth is more nuanced, especially in the morning. After a night of fasting, your blood sugar naturally dips. That dip isn't dangerous in itself, but for seniors, especially those with diabetes, prediabetes, or even a slowed metabolism, that morning drop can trigger a cascade of compensations, and your heart is the one that has to absorb the impact. When you skip breakfast, your body scrambles. The liver releases stored glucose to keep things stable. Cortisol and adrenaline rise to maintain function. Your blood sugar may spike later in the day, not because you overate, but because your body was playing catch-up. That roller coaster leads to insulin resistance, inflammation, and vascular stress. And each time that happens, your heart's rhythm, its strength, its endurance, all take a silent hit. Not immediately, not dramatically, but cumulatively, day after day, the toll adds up. Eating breakfast interrupts that spiral. It grounds your glucose, gives your insulin something to respond to, helps your blood vessels relax into a more balanced rhythm. And when that balance becomes a habit, your risk of heart failure, arrhythmias, and sudden blood pressure swings drops significantly. The power isn't in the size of the meal, but in the timing. Within 1 hour of waking, even a small bowl of oats, a piece of fruit, or a few nuts can stabilize your system in ways medication alone can't. It's easy to overlook breakfast as just another meal, but your body sees it differently. It's the first vote of the day in favor of balance. It tells your heart, you don't have to race. You're supported now. And in a world where so many seniors live in a state of quiet strain, that one small choice could be the moment your heart finally exhales. You've spent years building routines that feel clean, light, and safe. Maybe you've heard the praises of intermittent fasting or the benefits of giving your body a break from food. Maybe your doctor, your neighbor, or that article online convinced you that skipping breakfast could help with weight, digestion, or energy. And maybe for a while, it felt good, until it didn't, until your mornings became slower, your mind foggier, your energy unreliable. These aren't failures, they're signals. Because the truth is, many healthy habits popularized today were never built with seniors in mind. Intermittent fasting, for example, was largely studied on younger adults with fast metabolisms and no cardiovascular burden. But when a senior skips breakfast, especially one with a compromised heart or insulin sensitivity, the body doesn't become leaner, it becomes stressed. That long fast between dinner and lunch the next day stretches the heart's resilience. You might not feel the toll in hunger, but you'll feel it in blood pressure, in dizziness, in breathlessness as you climb the stairs. The body isn't burning fat, it's begging for support. Another quiet mistake, starting the day with coffee alone. Caffeine spikes cortisol and raises heart rate. When there's no food alongside it, that spike becomes unbuffered. Your heart works harder, your vessels tighten, and your glucose can crash later, especially if you take morning medications. It's not about quitting coffee, it's about understanding it needs company. A slice of toast, a boiled egg, even a few spoonfuls of yogurt can anchor your system in ways caffeine alone cannot. Health isn't just about discipline, it's about timing, adaptation, and care. What worked in your 30s might be hurting you in your 60s, and that's not failure, that's change. Your heart doesn't need punishment. It needs rhythm. It needs support. And it needs you to unlearn habits that no longer serve it and replace them with choices that do. Starting with breakfast. There's a hidden tension most seniors carry without realizing it. You feel it before you speak, before you rise, before you even fully wake. It lives in your shoulders, in your breath, in the slight tightness behind your chest. It's your nervous system still bracing for the day ahead. After decades of life, your stress response becomes quicker, more sensitive, more deeply wired. The smallest triggers, hunger, a missed pill, a troubling thought, can activate your fight or flight reflex. And without proper fuel, that tension stays high, long after the morning sun appears. When you eat breakfast, you're not just feeding your body, you're speaking to your nerves. Specifically, to the vagus nerve, the key messenger between your brain and your heart. A nourishing meal in the morning helps activate the parasympathetic system, the rest and digest state that quiets your stress hormones, lowers your heart rate, and softens your blood vessels. This isn't just theory, it's biological reality. And for older adults, this switch from stress to calm is harder to access and even more critical to reach. Skipping food in the morning delays that transition. Your body stays alert, edgy, and inflamed, primed for protection instead of peace. Over time, this pattern feeds into anxiety, high blood pressure, arrhythmias, and even insomnia. It's not just about stress in your mind, it's stress in your bloodstream, and breakfast can be one of the most gentle, direct ways to interrupt that loop. Not with sugar-laden cereals or processed bars, but with slow grounding foods. A warm porridge, a handful of walnuts, something your body recognizes as real. You don't need to meditate for an hour or follow a complicated routine. Sometimes calm begins with a spoon, with a plate, with a simple present moment of nourishment. Your heart doesn't only beat, it listens. And when you offer it a meal instead of a battle, it answers with steadiness, with rhythm, with the kind of ease that no pill can provide. Breakfast isn't indulgence. For your nervous system, it's medicine. If you're over 60, chances are your mornings begin with a handful of pills. Maybe it's for your heart, maybe your blood pressure, maybe something to ease the pain in your joints or regulate your sugar. It's routine by now. Wake up, take your meds, pour some water, move on. But what many seniors don't realize is that taking certain medications on an empty stomach can quietly sabotage the very protection they're meant to provide. And for your heart, that silent conflict can carry serious consequences. Some medications, especially blood pressure pills, beta blockers, and aspirin, can irritate the stomach lining if taken without food. Others, like thyroid medications or certain diabetes drugs, are absorbed too quickly or unevenly when not buffered by a meal. You may feel lightheaded after rising or a strange pressure in your chest. You might blame it on aging or fatigue or the weather, but it could be your body reacting to medicine that never had a chance to land gently. It's a friction your heart doesn't need, and one that's easily prevented. Even more importantly, when your stomach is empty, your body is already in a slightly stressed state. Blood sugar lower, cortisol higher, vessels tighter. Introducing strong medications into that environment without any nutritional anchor can amplify the strain. It can trigger dizziness, mood swings, heart palpitations, or simply make your medications less effective. Your body was never designed to process chemistry in isolation. It needs context, it needs food, it needs something familiar to soften the entry. A small breakfast doesn't have to be elaborate. Just a few bites, a slice of toast, a spoonful of yogurt, a bit of fruit can provide the buffer your medications need to work as intended. It's not just about avoiding discomfort. It's about making sure the tools your doctor gave you are actually doing their job. Because when food and medicine work together, your heart doesn't just survive, it stabilizes. And that stability becomes the foundation for everything else that matters. Every night as you sleep, your body isn't just resting, it's rebuilding, but it's also using stored energy, breaking down small bits of muscle, pulling on reserves to keep your organs functioning. For younger adults, this overnight loss is easily repaired by hormones and quick recovery. But for seniors, it's different. The loss adds up. Night after night, your body depletes itself, slowly, quietly, especially when no breakfast follows. And your heart, which relies heavily on lean muscle for metabolic support, suffers from that erosion more than you think. This muscle loss isn't always visible. It might appear as weakness in your legs, stiffness in your back, or a flutter in your chest when you exert yourself. You may feel slower climbing stairs, or need longer to catch your breath. These are not just signs of age, they are signs of depletion. And when breakfast is skipped, your body has no immediate building blocks to reverse that trend. It keeps breaking down, and your heart, being muscle itself, feels the cost most directly. Protein is especially critical in the morning. After fasting, your body is primed to absorb and utilize nutrients efficiently. A small portion of high-quality protein, like an egg, a scoop of Greek yogurt, or a handful of nuts, can significantly reduce muscle breakdown and support cardiac tissue. When paired with complex carbohydrates and a bit of healthy fat, this simple meal becomes a restoration ritual. Not just for your muscles, but for your energy, your rhythm, your strength. Think of breakfast not as a duty, but as repair. Each bite you take is a brick laid back into your foundation. You may not see the results immediately, but in time you'll feel it. Less morning fatigue, steadier steps, clearer thoughts. Your body wants to rebuild. Your heart wants to recover, but it can only do so if you offer it the tools. And breakfast is where that rebuilding begins. Quietly, powerfully, one nourishing moment at a time. You wake up tired, maybe more tired than when you went to sleep. Your limbs feel heavy, your thoughts fogged, your breath slightly shallow. You sip coffee, hoping for clarity, but it never quite comes. You try to shake it off, move through the morning, push through the errands or appointments, but by mid-morning, or maybe even sooner, fatigue comes crashing in again. And the cruel irony, the very thing that could have softened that crash is the thing you skipped: breakfast. Fatigue isn't always about sleep. For seniors, it's often about fuel, or the lack of it. Overnight, your body drains its reserves to keep your heart beating, your lungs moving, your brain functioning. And when morning comes, it's running low. No breakfast means no replenishment. So your heart has to work harder to circulate blood. Your brain has to work harder to stay focused. And your muscles start pulling from places they shouldn't just to keep you upright. That kind of fatigue isn't solved by rest, it's solved by nourishment. The body is remarkably adaptive. If you consistently skip breakfast, it will learn to survive, but it won't thrive. Your metabolism slows, your cognitive speed dips. You become more sensitive to stress, more prone to blood pressure swings, and more likely to experience lightheadedness or falls. And slowly a quiet kind of fear settles in. Why am I so tired? Why can't I think straight anymore? But the answer isn't hidden. It's on your plate, or rather, what's missing from it. When you give your body breakfast, you break that fatigue loop. You provide glucose to your brain, amino acids to your muscles, electrolytes to your heart. You give your system the message it's been waiting for. We're safe now. We have energy to live. You won't feel a lightning bolt of power, but you'll feel steadier, clearer, more rooted in your body. And that feeling, repeated daily, is how energy returns. Not from willpower, but from fuel. From something as simple and as powerful as breakfast. Not all breakfasts are created equal. A slice of white bread with jam might quiet your hunger, but it won't support your heart. A sugary cereal might bring a burst of energy, but it fades fast and leaves your blood sugar swinging like a pendulum. What your heart truly needs in the morning isn't volume, it's quality. Specific nutrients that stabilize, protect, and fuel your cardiovascular system right from the start of the day. And the good news? You don't need a chef or a complex diet to get them. First, your heart thrives on potassium and magnesium, minerals that help relax blood vessels, regulate heartbeat, and reduce morning pressure spikes. Bananas, avocados, oats, and nuts are rich in these allies. Next, it craves fiber, found in whole grains like steel-cut oats or whole grain toast, to slow digestion and stabilize blood sugar. Then there's protein, especially the kind found in eggs, yogurt, or nut butters. These provide amino acids your heart muscle depends on to maintain strength and rhythm as you age. But perhaps most overlooked is the need for healthy fats, not fried or processed oils, but fats from flaxseed, chia, or a drizzle of olive oil. These help absorb fat-soluble vitamins like E and K, which are vital for vessel integrity. They also reduce systemic inflammation, a silent destroyer of heart tissue in aging adults. Pairing these fats with fiber and protein creates a meal that digests slowly, releasing energy evenly, preventing those dangerous peaks and crashes that stress your heart. Breakfast isn't about eating like you did at 30, it's about eating in a way that matches your heart's new needs. Simple combinations, like oatmeal with a tablespoon of almond butter or scrambled eggs with spinach on whole grain toast, can deliver everything your heart is quietly begging for. These are not fancy superfoods, they are practical tools, quiet protectors. Each nutrient plays a role, each bite a decision. And together, they create the most powerful morning medicine your heart could ask for. Your blood vessels may not speak, but they remember. Every morning you skip breakfast, they tighten a little more. They grow less flexible, more reactive. These vessels, once elastic highways delivering oxygen and nutrients, become stiffer with age. That stiffness is natural, but skipping breakfast accelerates it, creating the conditions for high blood pressure, poor circulation, and the quiet formation of plaque. Your heart may beat steadily, but if the roads it travels are constricted, that rhythm turns into resistance. When you rise without eating, your cortisol levels remain elevated longer. This prolongs vasoconstriction, the narrowing of your arteries. It also promotes the release of inflammatory markers that slowly damage the lining of your vessels. Without food, your insulin response is delayed or exaggerated, leading to surges in blood sugar later in the day that your arteries must absorb and adapt to. Over time, this constant tension wears them down. Microscopic tears form, cholesterol clings, calcification begins, and your heart has to push harder to keep the same blood flowing. Eating breakfast, especially one rich in fiber, antioxidants, and healthy fats, interrupts this process. It gently expands the vessels, reduces oxidative stress, and supports the production of nitric oxide, a molecule that helps arteries relax and blood flow more freely. It's a quiet restoration, not dramatic, not instant, but deeply protective. Like oiling the hinges of a door before they rust shut. Your vessels don't just carry blood, they carry memory. And breakfast helps remind them what safety feels like. You might not feel your arteries tightening. You might not sense the inflammation creeping in, but over time, you'll feel the difference between strain and flow, between fatigue and endurance, between risk and resilience. Skipping breakfast doesn't just leave your stomach empty, it leaves your vessels under pressure. And for your heart, that pressure compounds. A small, balanced morning meal may seem ordinary, but for your circulatory system, it's relief, it's restoration, it's a soft daily way of saying you're still cared for. You might not connect the two, sleep and breakfast, night and morning. One seems like the end, the other a beginning. But your body doesn't see it that way. It views them as one long continuous system, rest flowing into refueling. And when the cycle is broken, when sleep ends and no breakfast follows, the body doesn't reset properly. You may feel groggy longer. Your blood pressure may stay elevated. Your heart rate may remain erratic. That missing link between sleep and food, it quietly sets the tone for your entire day. During sleep, your body is in recovery mode. Hormones shift, cells repair. Energy stores are depleted to fuel essential processes. By the time you wake, your system is primed for re-entry into alertness, but it needs raw material to complete that shift. Skipping breakfast leaves that transition incomplete. Melatonin remains high. Cortisol stays elevated. Your heart, instead of gliding into daytime rhythm, stumbles. You might feel it as morning dizziness, delayed hunger, or even mood instability. But beneath those feelings is a body that's been left mid-cycle. And for seniors, this matters more than ever. With age, your circadian rhythm becomes more sensitive. Even small disruptions, like a skipped meal or an inconsistent wake time, can throw off your sleep-wake balance. You might find yourself wide awake at 2 a.m. or unable to fall asleep at night, not because of stress or age alone, but because your morning routine is missing its anchor. Breakfast is that anchor. It tells your brain, the day has begun, the night is over, restore balance. By choosing a consistent, gentle morning meal, you reinforce the very rhythm your heart and hormones crave. You improve sleep quality the following night. You reduce late-day crashes. You help your body distinguish between rest and action, stress and safety. Breakfast doesn't just feed you, it recalibrates you. It turns the page. And for seniors chasing more restful nights and steadier days, that one act of nourishment can be the pivot point everything else revolves around. It often happens quietly. Around 11 a.m. or noon, your energy dips sharply. Maybe your chest feels a little tighter, your heart beats a little louder. You feel lightheaded getting up from a chair. For some, it's a mild wave that passes. For others, it's the beginning of a trip to the ER. What many seniors don't realize is that these midday episodes of fatigue, dizziness, irregular heartbeat, or even sudden spikes in blood pressure are often rooted in what wasn't done hours earlier, eating a proper breakfast. By late morning, your body has been running on fumes, your blood sugar has dropped, your stress hormones have been elevated too long, and your heart has been compensating for the lack of energy. If you took medications early without food, they may now be peaking in your system in ways that amplify side effects. And if you finally do eat at lunchtime, your blood sugar can spike rapidly, placing more pressure on your heart and blood vessels than they were prepared to handle. This isn't just theory, it's a pattern seen in hospitals every day. Breakfast acts like a buffer against that instability. It creates a nutritional foundation that holds your body steady through the vulnerable mid-morning hours. A meal with protein, complex carbohydrates, and a touch of healthy fat slows digestion and stabilizes blood glucose. This means your blood vessels don't constrict so tightly, your heart doesn't race to compensate, and your brain doesn't misfire from lack of energy. You move more easily, breathe more deeply, and think more clearly, because your body isn't in a silent panic. For older adults, prevention is rarely dramatic. It's in the small, consistent things: a bowl of warm oats with berries, a slice of whole grain toast with avocado, a boiled egg with a few nuts. These are not luxuries, they are shields. Gentle, reliable protection for the hours when your heart is most vulnerable. And the earlier you give your body that protection, the less it will ask of you later. You've felt it before, that strange fog in the morning where thoughts move slower, where names, dates, and small tasks slip through your fingers like water. You might blame age, or poor sleep, or stress. And while all of those can play a role, there's another often overlooked culprit: a missing breakfast. Your brain and your heart are in constant conversation. And when the brain lacks fuel, the heart has to work harder to compensate. That fog isn't just forgetfulness, it's a signal, one that begins when nourishment is delayed. The brain uses more energy than any other organ in your body, and after a night of fasting, it relies heavily on glucose to reboot its processing speed, memory recall, and focus. When that fuel doesn't arrive, your nervous system activates stress hormones like cortisol to push through. That added strain increases blood pressure, accelerates heartbeat, and raises inflammation, all of which burden the heart. Mental fatigue becomes physical stress, and your cardiovascular system quietly absorbs the cost. But when you start the day with a small, balanced meal, you flip that switch. You stabilize your blood sugar, reduce hormonal strain, and sharpen your thinking. Nutrients like B vitamins, omega-3s, magnesium, and antioxidants found in foods like eggs, leafy greens, whole grains, and nuts nourish both the mind and the vessels that support it. And when your thoughts are clearer, your body moves with more confidence. Your stress response diminishes. your risk of slips, falls, or emotional overwhelm drops. It's not just about memory, it's about resilience. Clarity isn't a luxury in aging, it's essential because your decisions, your safety, your interactions, and your medications all rely on a clear mind. And a clear mind needs fuel. When you skip breakfast, you're not just forgetting food, you're withholding stability. But when you honor your morning meal, you create a foundation for both your thoughts and your heartbeat to settle. That stillness, that strength, that subtle power, it begins with breakfast, and your heart feels the difference every single time. By now, you've seen the pattern. The skipped mornings that ripple into dizzy afternoons, the silence in your stomach that echoes in your chest, the tension in your breath that lingers until nightfall. You've carried this weight quietly, perhaps even proudly, thinking you were doing the right thing by eating less, pushing through, staying light. But your heart has been listening the whole time, waiting for a signal. Not a feast, not a perfect plan, just a simple, steady message that says, you're not alone in this. Breakfast for a senior is not about appetite, it's about alignment. It aligns your metabolism with your medications. It aligns your nervous system with your breath. It aligns your body's stress with your sense of calm. This isn't about fear, it's about respect, because your heart has served you through decades of storms, griefs, celebrations, recoveries, and now it needs a softer rhythm, a gentle routine, a way to wake that doesn't start with emptiness, but with presence, with care, with intention. Maybe you've never liked breakfast. Maybe mornings feel rushed or dull. Maybe the idea of chewing something when your mind is still cloudy feels like a chore. But this isn't about forcing, it's about honoring. What if it started with just a slice of fruit or a cup of warm milk with a sprinkle of cinnamon? What if it wasn't about calories, but communication? What if your first act of the day was a conversation between you and your own survival? I see you, I remember you, I still care for you. Because the truth is, healing in later life doesn't come from extremes. It comes from consistency, from small gestures repeated with love. Your heart doesn't need heroics, it needs rhythm. A few mindful bites before your pills, a pause before the day's noise begins, a moment that says, we're starting this day supported. You are not too old to change, you are not too late to heal. And every heartbeat that follows that simple morning meal becomes a step back toward strength, toward clarity, toward life, one breakfast at a time,